At the point of recording this video, the Samsung Galaxy A06 should be out for you to purchase now. However, there are subtle changes that has been made on this device that you might not notice, especially if you're somebody who used an A05. And even now, comparing these two right in front of you, you could tell that they look very, very similar at the rear side. But Samsung cooked a few differences in here that you might be interested in. So let's talk about it. We're comparing the Galaxy A06 to the A05, and these two devices, honestly, as I said earlier, look very similar in so many ways, but also differ in only 4 ways. One of which is on the build and design. Of course, the build and design looks quite similar. However, the Samsung Galaxy A06 feels a bit more premium because of the finish on the frame. It's something that feels like a metal, but isn't. It's actually a polycarbonate finish that feels premium-ish. Also, we could tell that just like most of the models that were released this year, there's a presence of the key island with which the A05 doesn't have. On the key island, we have a power button on the A06 that doubles as a fingerprint scanner, which allows you to open your device and secure it as well. At the rear side, they do look the same until you feel it. The pattern on the A06 has a texture to it that you actually feel in your palm, whereas the pattern on the A05 doesn't have that texture, so it's just mainly gloss and it attracts fingerprints a lot. At the bottom of the device, we could see the speaker grill, which has a different design on the A06 as compared to the A05. There's a USB Type-C charging port, both of which has support for 25 watt fast charging, the presence of the headphone jack 3.5mm and microphone ports. There is also one microphone port up top, and that sums it up for the build. Of course, SIM card support. There's a dual SIM support here and also the addition of micro SD card. To wrap the build up, the bezels on here are slightly thinner on the Galaxy A06 at an 83.1% screen to body ratio, whereas the A05 has an 82% screen to body ratio bezel. That basically sums it up for the physical differences on the build and design of the Samsung Galaxy A06 compared to the Galaxy A05. Let's talk about the display on these devices. The display specifications are the same and the output is equal. I mean, consuming content on here seems the same and there isn't much of a difference to tell here. The only difference is because of the thinner bezel and the boxy design of the Samsung Galaxy A06, it feels more immersive and slightly punchy with colors. But they all come with a 720p display panel and also have a 60Hz refresh rate, which is not 90Hz unfortunately. But yeah, it's an entry-level device and it's expected to have some of these specifications, and you should also have a PLS LCD panel. This is not AMOLED. Both devices come at 6.7 inches, although I feel like the A06 is slightly thinner and taller in terms of display, but that could be my eye, and I think that shouldn't be that much of a huge difference to note. The most crucial part about this device where you notice a difference is the operating system. The A06 comes out of the box with Android 14, whereas the A05 comes out of the box with Android 13 with no software updates for the A05. The A06, however, gets 2 years of major software updates, which means you can use the device from Android 14 to Android 16. And Samsung would add 2 more years of security updates to this, so you could basically use the phone for up to 4 years before thinking of changing it. That is if you're somebody who cares a lot about security updates and software updates. As stated earlier, the A05 on the other hand doesn't come with such specifications. Both devices run on One UI 6, but the A06 is a bit superior with the function of having up to One UI 6.1 and should receive more updates from henceforth, whereas the A05 has only One UI 6.0. Samsung is giving you storage options that are similar for both devices. 64GB being the baseline storage with up to 4GB of RAM, and it could go as high as 6GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage. Depending on which one you want to go for, the pricing might vary based on that. Talking about storage, that brings us to performance. Powerhouse of both devices is powered by the MediaTek G83 processor. Now, this is not a power performing processor. From my experience with the device so far, I've noticed that there are little to less lags throughout the day. But if you start running power intensive apps, power hungry apps, you'd realize some minimal lags and hitches here and there which would affect the overall performance of the device. Of course, Samsung has RAM Plus, but it's just virtual RAM, and this doesn't play a hugely significant role in changing the experience of performance overall. But it does the job when it's required and supports it in its own way. However, I wouldn't advise anyone to run heavy demanding games on either of these devices. Again, remember, they are entry-level devices and they don't need to be stressed that much. There's up to 5,000 mAh battery capacity on both devices, which means that you can use either devices for a long period of time without having to worry about charging it. Of course, if you're a heavy user like I am, you might end up charging the device at least once in a day. But if you're not, you could go quite a longer time or longer hours or even over a day without having to worry about charging the device. And if you worry about charging the device, Samsung gives you 25 watts fast charging on here, which I've tested, and allows the device to charge very fully in an hour and 15 to 20 minutes maximum. So if you need to get to somewhere really quick and your device wasn't fully charged the night before, you could quickly plug it in and charge it. I feel like this is an amazing feature to have on an entry-level device, especially with people who would want to use entry-level devices as their second options. You could quickly charge it up and then use it. The fact that there are not many differences on here is what baffles me a little bit. The cameras on here are quite the same. The output is similar and there's nothing too different to talk about, especially when it comes to the camera performance. Now, this is not a camera performing device. You wouldn't want to use it for content creation or do heavy demanding tasks for videography. You'd maybe want to take pictures for demonstrative purposes, have those Zoom meetings or normal virtual meetings that will require you to use either your selfie camera or even the rear facing camera. But if you want to do more with the cameras, you'd have to be in good lighting conditions and well lit situations to help get the best out of the cameras on either of these devices. But hey, they both come with a 50 megapixel wide lens, which is the main camera, and 2 megapixel depth focus lens, which helps with portrait shots. I honestly don't know why there's a portrait feature in there. I think, to be very honest, they could have either used a wide lens to help with the shots or how we can use this. But anyway, I still feel like it's an entry-level device and I can't really blame them much. There's a target market for this and the people who would want to purchase this would really enjoy it. But let me know down in the comments, which of these devices would you get? And if you use an A05, do you think you would be upgrading to the A06? Honestly, I'd advise anyone to, because I'm somebody who is keen on software, and getting security updates and software updates or major software updates would be very essential for anyone who uses a smartphone, because it helps keep your device secure and safe for anything that would come up against you in terms of hackers or attacks in any way or form. But hey, that's your decision to make. You can't base it on mine. So let me know down in the comment section which one you'll be going for. I'm Delpy. This has been my comparison between the Galaxy A05 and the A06. And as always, we will talk more chat.